We will continue our availability with Jeff Gordon, driver of the number 24 Drive to End Hunger Chevrolet, currently 15th in points and 1 win so far this season. Jeff, talk a little bit about coming into Michigan this weekend.
Yeah, it's an interesting weekend with everything that happened the last time that we were here with tires. One of my favorite tracks, always has been, and big and fast, and the repave, and then having a test here a few weeks ago or a couple weeks ago, and then the start of the day was very, very exciting and interesting with the lack of grip and then all the issues that guys had putting fluid down the track. So made for a very challenging day to start, that's for sure. And there towards the end, track started getting grip back and started seeing the speeds get faster and faster and faster. And so, it's going to definitely be an interesting weekend of racing, and look forward to qualifying today and picking up some speed and making the most out of Sunday.
All right, we'll take questions for Jeff. Please raise your hand. We'll get a wireless mic to you. As always, please state your name and affiliation. Questions? We'll start right here with David.
David Carville, NASCAR.com. Jeff, this always seems like it's a big race weekend for manufacturers, and I mean, do you feel a difference in that vein when you're here? And I mean, GM's based over in Detroit, and sort of how does that all play into the scope of this weekend? Yeah,
no, I definitely feel it. Yeah, I did an event for Chevrolet yesterday over at Woodward Cruise. It was very, very cool. Second year in a row for me to get a chance to go over there to Woodward and see all the vehicle displays and cool things from the past and present and future that Chevrolet has going on. So not only is that a big event, but they know how big this race is to them, and we've seen past manufacturers play a pretty big role here in their involvement, and I think you see the officials that are here on race day, and so there's a lot of pride on the line for this race. This is a big track. Aerodynamics, horsepower really play a big role here, and so I think that when you're building street cars, there's a lot of pride that goes into having the most power and the best car and the fastest car and the one that wins the race. So, or most efficient car, the one it can be done fuel mileage. So this is a big race to them. We certainly recognize that, and it puts a little bit more extra pressure on us as well to to go out and perform for them.
All right, we'll take our next question in the back from Brian.
Brian Nelson, Motor Racing Network. Jeff, a couple of weeks ahead, looking toward Atlanta. If you can kind of talk about that race, your outlook for that event, and going there where you won last year, what's different? How is your team different than it was this time a year ago?
Yeah, I'm excited. Atlanta has always been a great track for us, and after last year, and I feel like there's very few changes coming. When you think of tires and track conditions and cars and all those things, very little has changed. I feel like our cars are actually better right now, than they even were last year at that time when we won that race. So I can't wait to get there and hopefully have another battle like we did last year. That was a lot of fun, and obviously with what's going on in the chase for the chase, it could be a crucial race for us. So we never go into any race banking on anything. We go in there working hard to try to win the race, but that's a track where I feel like because so few changes, it gives us a little more confidence to go in there that we can have a great weekend.
Do you keep your eye on the other guys that you're racing for that wild card spot throughout these races?
Yes and no. Just trying to race as hard as we possibly can for each position. Like last week, we were just battling our way back up into the top 10 after having a bit of a rough middle part of the race, and all of a sudden I saw the 18 rolling slow, knowing that he's a big threat in this thing. I didn't know what kind of day he was having. I didn't know he was leading the race or anything like that, and so I thought me and Matt had a shot at passing him, which I was certainly anxious to do because I wanted every position I could get, and especially when it's somebody you're racing you know, for that wild card, then you know, it made it that much more important. I got up on the wheel even a little bit harder because of it. So only in that type of situation I would say that is the case.
Okay, we'll take our next question in the very back with Ryan.
Ryan McGee, ESPN. Jeff, we're kind of on this fine-tuning stage of trying to figure out every little edge to get these wild card spots. Are you one that does an inventory of, all right, these are the 4 tracks that are coming up. I know I like this place. I know I don't like this place. Are you at the point where you're breaking down strengths and weaknesses at all these places?
No, I don't think I'm that complicated, or I'm not. I'm not wired quite like that. You know, I really. I don't get too far ahead. I really live in the moment, and you know, the team. There's certain members of the team that are focused on, you know, setups and tracks and all these things coming up, whether it be our 7-post or wind tunnel, engineering. You know, that's their job. Alan, as a crew chief, his job is to kind of oversee all that and manage all that, and the people, the pit crews, everything. You know, it's such a tough job. And I feel like that my job is not to manage those things. My job is to go drive the race car the best that I possibly can. And on Tuesdays when we have our meetings and we're talking about upcoming races or past races, is to give the most valuable information I possibly can that's going to help them prepare for that race the next time, or something we can learn from that track or that particular day that takes us to the next race or another one down the road, or in preparation, say for like this weekend, the discussions that we had and breaking down, you know, details from our test and talking about setups in our plan for the race weekend. I give them, from a driver's perspective, my input, and I leave it at that. You know, I come here, I walk in the garage, I get in the car and I go drive the car and I tell them what it's doing. You know, I'm not sitting there trying to calculate anything other than, you know, how do I make the car go faster and what kind of information I give them. And I do that lap by lap, session by session, and, you know, do that throughout the whole race. And that's as far as I think ahead. I mean, when I get asked a question of like Atlanta, yeah, you know, I'm excited about going to Atlanta because of what we did there last year and how good our cars are this year. But you know, I really haven't put much more thought into it other than that.
Okay, we'll take our next question in the back from Marty, then come up front to read.
Marty Smith, ESPN. You seemed pretty dejected last weekend with the decision making at the end of the race. What conversations have you had with NASCAR, or do you plan to have any, et cetera, with their decision at the end not to throw the yellow?
I can't change the outcome. You know, if I felt like there was a way to change the outcome and take back that last corner, I certainly would. I mean, I was as dejected at just the fact that it happened as I was that you know, that they kind of allowed, you know, the car out there without really throwing a caution. I mean, you know, it cost, I think, Kyle the win, possibly cost the 2 the win, you know, because I think he might have hit something going into that bus stop. Certainly cost us a lot of positions, but that's racing. You know, yeah, I'm going to be mad about it at the time, and you know, not happy with some of the things that I felt like I could have been a little more conservative in that last corner, and come home whatever 8th or 9th, and that would have still been a pretty solid, you know, day for us. But you know, I was racing hard and probably harder than I should have been, and you know, I felt like we also probably could have given me a little bit more information on that last lap about what was going on. But, you know, I talked to the team, and they were like, hey, you know, we didn't want to break your rhythm of you racing hard and race for position, and you were moving forward. We didn't want to say anything. So, you know, you can't blame them for that. You know, it was a great finish. I mean, gosh, I went home and watched it. I was like, wow, that was exciting. That was cool. So you hope the sport can you know, gain from that. Unfortunately, it happened at the expense of quite a few guys that, you know, I at the time I definitely didn't agree with.
All right, go ahead with your question, Reed.
Reed Spencer with NASCAR Wires. You just answered a lot of what my question was, but in a situation like this, where you got a finish that people are going to be talking about for a long time, one of the most exciting that we've had so far this year, do you think it's reasonable that striking a balance between what's going on the track and letting the race play out at the end of the race like that is sort of a moving target, and there's some latitude there in terms of making those decisions.
I mean, when I watch an NBA game, I want to see him foul at the end. Let him play the game. So, that's why I have to take myself kind of out of the equation there. And that was a fantastic finish to the race. Very entertaining. Great for the sport. Great for Marcos. Even for Brad. That was cool. But somebody pays the price, and those guys aren't going to be happy with that. And that's the way racing is. Not everybody's going to be happy with the way things end up. And and I was one of those. So, but yeah, if I'm not a competitor out there, then I want to see these races not be controlled and not. I just want consistency, though. It's like one week it's let's throw a caution, the next week it's don't throw a caution. So I think that's the only thing that's a little bit discouraging at times is just the lack of consistency.
All right, we'll take our next question from Claire.
Claire Beeline, Sirius XM NASCAR Radio. The part that I can't get in my mind is you have a spotter like Marcus Ambrose's spotter. They did not tell him about any thought about the oil because they didn't want him to change his racing. Mm-hmm. And so if a spotter is not telling the driver about the oil, and yet some say NASCAR should tell people about the oil, I can't rectify the two of those together, that the own team isn't telling their own team about it. You understand what I'm saying? They don't want the driver to stop racing, but they want NASCAR to call the caution.
Well, as a spotter, if I'm a spotter, if I put myself in their shoes, and I see a car smoking, and I'm hearing chatter on the radio, guys getting out of control, I don't want to say too much to where that person lets off and loses a race or loses a bunch of positions because I told them slow down, watch out for this, or maybe I don't even know exactly where it is. But I also think that there is a little bit you can do just to say, hey, they're saying there's oil on the track, be careful. I think that message, and honestly, my spotter might have told me that, and I probably didn't even hear. I was racing so hard, and actually at Watkins Glen, I could hear my spotter half the time anyway because the track's so spread out, it's breaking up. You can hardly hear anything. But I'll be honest, on that last lap, even if they had told me that, I don't know if I was racing hard, and if I thought that there was oil on the outside of that last turn, then yeah, I probably wouldn't have made the move that I made. I still thought that there was enough cars ahead of me that they were going to clean the oil off before I got there, but somehow that didn't happen. But listen, we all have a responsibility. Driver has a responsibility. The spotter, NASCAR. So many people play a role in it. So it is what it is. That's why I'm not gonna. I'm moving on. We race this weekend. Do I ask for consistency? Yes, please be a little more consistent with the calls. I mean, on a road course you can have local yellows and stuff like that. There's always ways to do it better and learn from it.
Any additional questions for Jeff? Final questions for Jeff. Jeff, thank you very much for your time this afternoon, and good luck this weekend.